The National have been one of the most consistently good bands of the century so far. I'd say 2007's Boxer was probably their biggest critical breakthrough. It was certainly when I first heard of them for the first time. And 2010's High Violet was probably their commercial one. But for my money, 2005's Alligator is their true masterpiece. It acts as both an ode to and balm for the insecurities, anxieties and existential crises of trying to be an acceptable excuse for an adult in the modern world. Welcome to 2020 Sound, the channel where we take a look back at the underrated and overlooked in indie and alternative rock history. And while I wouldn't say that Alligator is underrated by any stretch of the imagination, I do feel that it's kind of overshadowed a bit by some of the band's later albums. Perhaps in part because the band themselves don't really play that much of it live anymore. To me, listening to Alligator is kind of like going for a drink with a friend or pouring your heart out to a bartender. There's something very confessional, something very cathartic about it. Matt Berninger's the one doing the confessing, but in sharing that experience through Alligator's fantastic 13 songs, it's like you step into his head or step into the head of his characters, and in a way you become the protagonist and he becomes the bartender, offering no solutions but providing some comfort in sharing your demons and sharing a metaphorical drink in solidarity. That kind of confessional quality is present in all of the National's albums, but it's the topic of those confessions that particularly resonates with me on Alligator. The album feels like a tour through the neuroses, guilt, desires, fears, highs and lows of someone trying to get to grips with their place in the world. Someone trying to come to terms with their behaviour, their relationships, their friendships, their career, their city, their country, their life decisions. The weight of uncertainty feels really heavy across this whole album, but it's all shot through with a self-deprecating wit and a sense of romance and fragile hope that ultimately makes it so charming and so reassuring. Alligator makes no promises that it's all going to be okay. It just says, hey, if you're worried, you're not alone. And that's one of the most important messages you can ever give. As you can probably tell, Matt Berninger's lyrics are central to my love affair with the band, and this album in particular. And I find that particularly interesting because generally speaking, I'm more of a music guy. I generally don't pay that much attention to lyrics as long as they're not, absolutely atrocious. But Berninger has this incredible way with a turn of phrase. The album is just chock full of these vivid passages that are just lodged in my head. Some are genuinely, strikingly raw, dark and evocative, like the cries in Abel of or Baby We'll Be Fine, where he intones, I pull off your jeans and you spill Jack and Coke in my collar and melt like a witch and scream. I'm so sorry for everything. Or the one that always gets me, friend of mine, I've got 2 sets of headphones, I miss you like hell. Won't you come in and stay with me? But there's also these priceless moments of levity amidst the panic, melancholy and pathos. Whether he's chastising himself for trying to escape an awkward social interaction in secret meeting, where he asks himself, didn't anybody tell you how to gracefully disappear in a room? Or the hazy memories of a raucous night out in City Middle, where he recalls, I have weird memories of you pissing in a sink, I think. Or the line that always sticks in my head above all others because it's such an absurd image from the song Karen. Karen, you should call your father. Maybe it's just a phase. He'll know the trick to get a wayward soul to change his ways. It's a common fetish for a doting man. The ballerina on the coffee table, cock in hand. And in amongst it all, there's still these lines of real beauty and romance and optimism, like in The Geese of Beverly Rogue, which declares, and signs off with, oh come be my waitress and serve me tonight. Serve me the sky with a big slice of lemon. could go on all day. Berninger is just one of my all-time favourite lyricists. His words come across like snapshots of thoughts. And like all great ambiguous lyrics, his words force you to read between the lines, to connect with the emotion behind the words, to step into that which words can't articulate. And a huge part of what makes the words so effective is the vocal delivery. Berninger has this low croon reminiscent of Leonard Cohen or Stuart Staples from Tindersticks that forces you to pay close attention. I always remember the first time I heard Berninger sing because my initial reaction was, oh my god, he's terrible. It was a clip of the band performing Fake Empire on Letterman, and yeah, I just remember seeing it and thinking, that guy cannot sing. But I forgot all about that, discovered Alligator, and very quickly became besotted with the guy's voice. He creates such an intimacy with the listener because hearing him sing is like hearing someone speak. It's so low and conversational that it feels like every lyric is something that he's confiding in you. But I've gone on about Berninger too long now. It's time to show some love to the rest of the band and the wonderful music that they make that brings those words to life. I mentioned this in a video I did on REM, but I often think of the National as being one of the main heirs to that band's musical throne. They have a similar deft hand at being able to take the traditional and the new and combine it together to create something that feels really fresh. Around the time of Alligator in particular, and the two albums either side of it, I think you can trace elements of folk and Americana, likely filtered through REM and Dylan and the Meat Puppets and maybe even Neutral Milk Hotel. The art rock leanings of everyone from the Velvet Underground through Roxy Music to Talking Heads and Radiohead. The ornate chamber pop stylings of the aforementioned Tindersticks and late 90s Mercury Rev and Lamb Chop. They sound like exactly what they are, a product of listening to a lot of great music. The Dessner twins, Bryce and Aaron, bring so much to the table with their guitar work and piano work. Beautiful parts and textures that capture everything from the awe of the heavens with the twinkling verses of Looking for Astronauts,
Looking for astronauts,
to the foreboding paranoia of Karen's choruses.
Well, whatever you do, listen, you better.
From the gentle tenderness of the gorgeous Daughters of the Soho Riots. To the adrenaline rush of pushing for a better tomorrow in Mr. November. But just as important to defining the National's sound is the rhythm section, the Devendorf brothers, Bryan and Scott. It's their distinctive approach on Alligator that kind of ties all the strands of influence together. On their debut album, the rhythms were relatively pedestrian and I think played a big part in anchoring the band very much in alt country territory. But by Alligator, the rhythms are sounding much more unexpected, giving the melodies and the textures over the top much more room to explore, while at the same time creating an almost signature angularity which gives the songs a sense of cohesion no matter what's going on over the top. They're often brutally on the beat, almost robotic with a snare and massive feature. It's very reminiscent of the kind of stuff that Stephen Morris was doing in Joy Division. And even when those rhythms loosen up a little, they still keep you guessing, like the skittish unpredictability of the rhythm firm's Secret Meeting. Or they tumble with a speed that keeps you on edge, like in Lit Up. It's this almost agitation in the rhythmical work that marries so well with the lyrical themes to keep this undercurrent of tension running throughout the whole record. For me, this is the National album where things fell together most perfectly. It has the hooks of High Violet while having a much more intimate feel to it. It has the intimacy of Boxer, but in my opinion, stronger melodies and more memorable moments. Each National album since Alligator has felt a bit like a chef tweaking a recipe. Each one's slightly different, but it's always distinctly, recognisably the National. I like them all, but it's Alligator that definitely clasps me in its jaws most strongly. For some, the band's pace of evolution has been a little slow, and they sometimes get accused of being a little samey, but I think the words to Looking for Astronauts put it best. They all run together and never make sense, but that's how we like it, and that's all we want. Something to cry for and something to hunt. As long as Matt Berninger's tending the bar for us all to drown our sorrows in, the National will always be one of my favourite regular haunts. Thanks so much for watching. As I say, this album is absolutely full of brilliant lyrics, so if I didn't mention your favourite during the video, do please stick it in the comments below. And if you're interested in watching any further videos all about overlooked or overshadowed or underrated music from indie and alternative rock history, then do please subscribe.